technology is important, but you have to be surrounded by the right people.
Welcome to the Texas Embassy podcast, brought to you by the LFG team. Tell us about yourself.
Well, first off, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's an honor and it's exciting for me. I didn't really think my story's too much different to other service members or people that continue to serve, but this is my story, so I'll tell it. Right?
Sit back and pay attention.
That's right. So I was born and raised in San Francisco, California. I, joined the Army early, and my real focus with joining the military was how my family came here. I'm first generation Filipino American. How my family got to the United States, and it was through service. So my grandfather was a Bataan Death March survivor.
Wow.
So he was one of the very few that made it to the United States after the events of World War II. And he then brought my father in the early 50s over as the oldest son, right? And then he slowly brought his 6 kids and his wife over to the United States to kind of build the American dream, because we still believe in the American dream. So not that my grandfather spoke about it a lot, but, I was very interested in his story. So I would get bits and pieces growing up. So I thought to myself, like, I've got to serve, since that's how my roots in the United States really came about. So
it's a higher calling, really.
Yeah. I mean, so, I didn't know I was going to do 29 years.
Right.
I thought I was going to do less. But, over the course, you get, this, and most that do over 20, you just fall in love with soldiers because they come from all different walks of life.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Right?
Yeah. Different perspectives.
There's ones that are super educated, and there's some that, grew up in the country or the inner city, and everybody's got a great story. And regardless of your background, you kind of work as a team. Mm-hmm. So, my first couple deployments, this is at a time when we weren't really deploying, or to places called Honduras. So I did 2 6-month tours there. And then Panama, I did 2 6-month tours there. And I'm like, man, I'm all in on, seeing other cultures, working as a combined arms team. And then, PCS, and went to Haiti.
Wow.
After I got to 25th ID light, when it was still light, we went to Haiti for Uphold Democracy. So that was interesting too, because there was no OIF and OEF during those times. Right. So there are deployments, if you remember, if you didn't get into Panama or which, I was too young for that, or Desert Shield, Desert Storm, not many people were deploying. We used to...
Nobody would wear the patch.
That's right.
Right.
We used to, like, hey, if you go to NTC, that's a deployment.
Right. That's right.
Right? That back in the day.
The closest thing.
And then, soon after, like, everybody had a combat patch, right? Because of all these deployments. So, that's kind of my story. I was an exchange officer. It's interesting. You call this podcast Texas Embassy because, I have a picture of the Texas Embassy in London.
That's right.
When one of my mates was like, hey, I was an exchange officer. He's like, let's go visit the Texas Embassy. And there's a restaurant called Texas Embassy. So that's what I thought. We're going to eat some really bad Mexican food in London. But it was the plaque for the Texas Embassy.
Russ, I think people should understand, like, let's go back.
Yeah.
Where did you go to school? Because I think that's really where the Texas tie is.
Yeah, so I'm a Cal. I mean, I went to school, University of California. I that's kind of what I did. And I wanted to venture out further, but, that for me, that was the best. I could have went to 7th ID when it was still there and stay in California. But I was like, I joined to see the world,
right.
Not see more of California. So did all that. I mean, it's been fantastic ride up. I mean, all the way through brigade command, right? So my weird assignment was that I was exchange officer in London. One of the things I did was I set up the security as the British representative to the Met Police, the funeral of the Queen Mum.
Wow.
Yeah. So, over 1 million people attended that funeral, and so good operational experience.
So you had some international exposure,
I got
right?
to the city of London, which was very bizarre.
Wow.
To get. I mean, you're honored to get it. So one of the things I can do with the city, the key to the city, is I could walk sheep across, Tower Bridge. So that, not that I have any sheep, but I'm going to probably rent one and walk it across.
If we get that request, I can say
that's
now
right.
I know a guy.
You know a guy. That's right. So that was interesting. That was fun. But at that same time was a 9/11. Then I had oldest one was born in Hawaii, my first tour, and then I had twins that were born. The most expensive souvenirs from London were the twins who are now serving. So one's a lieutenant in 82nd, so on his way to Middle East someplace. Yeah. And then the other one, Thing 2, as I refer, Thing 1 and Thing 2, and the original Thing's my oldest. He's on the border, so he's first armored. So he's out doing zone reconnaissance,
right,
and
right,
turning a potentially, I wouldn't say boring mission into a good training event.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
Because
real world training.
That's right. Because what happens with soldiers when they don't have anything to do?
Yeah, idle hands.
That's right.
That's
right.
So true.
So, so then after brigade command, what's left? So I think that's where we kind of linked up. So I went back to the Pentagon my third time. Never say you're never going back to the Pentagon, because as soon as you say that, that's the curse.
If you've been there once,
that's right.
You're at the top of the list to go back.
That's right.
Initially,
100%.
There's just knowing the culture and
100%.
how to get into the Pentagon is a task in itself.
Yeah. So, I mean, I did everything from chief of initiatives, first time in the Pentagon. I was an XO the second time in the Pentagon, and then the third time I was on Army Futures Command Task Force. This is this whole idea experiment that we all had, right? Driven by our old boss, who doesn't take no for an answer. So I was a chief of staff for the Army Futures Command Task Force, and then we finally got all that approved through the Big Four. We were playing 7-layer chess. Right, because you're talking to Congress,
Absolutely.
You're talking to other services, you're disrupting industry, you're disrupting the Army itself, you're disrupting how academia looks at us, how our allies look at us. It was like a very fun time to be in the Army, especially at that level, right? Never worked
to be in the room, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we were the bag men.
Yeah.
We were outside.
That's right.
Sometimes we could get in and listen to those kind of conversations.
So, and then I went to go work for Secretary McCarthy as his XO, and I think that's really where we kind of gelled even more to understand, because he didn't want the baby to be killed in the crib, right, so to speak. This new idea, the birth of Army Futures Command. Then I came here and was General Murray's executive officer. Did that for 2 years. 1 year was enough.
So General Murray was the first.
He was the
commander,
first commanding general,
right?
Right. And then asked me to stay a second year because we're building momentum. Then in the first couple of years of any organization, look at Q Branch or whatever, you have to get the word out.
Absolutely.
And sometimes only the commander can get that word out.
They want to hear it directly from him.
So we were traveling all over, 4 days, travel, 1 day back in the office, and then start again on Sunday. right? You do that for 2 years and, it makes you a very dull boy, but it gives you some crazy points. I mean, that's the weird thing.
But you're integrated into the mission, right?
Oh,
I think that level of consistency, when you talk about those engagements, right? It's not just a silo. And that's, I don't think the entire effort did not want just to be another silo in Austin.
That's right.
So those touch points, you being a part of those touch points, I think we're still carrying on that mission.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm going to tell you, like, to be in the big, let's go back to the Pentagon, to be in the big four meetings with just XOs and the big four and then the other 4-stars that came in. I mean, sometimes you can, it was the tenseness was very palpable, right? Like you could cut it.
Even built up before the meeting, right? You could just tell that tense, absolutely.
If looks can kill, they're ready to kill each other over these ideas. Right. And then you fast forward to when you come here, you have meetings with the governor and General Murray, right? Just a touch point, let him know how he's doing. Or Michael Dell himself, right? Just
the champions,
four of you in a room.
Right.
I had no business being there, but I was in there, right? And helping do my part. And we had we still have a fantastic team. You can change the moniker from Army Futures Command to T2Com. They grew in responsibility. They grew in size, but their passion is the same.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think this. That was one of our courses of action is kind of what is developed in T2Com. But that was so much to take on the largest change in 40 years that was basically one of the throwaways. Was it the right thing to do? Probably, but was it too much too soon? Probably. So it just seems like this was another waypoint in the journey of, how do we get things faster to the warfighter?
You and I know this now, being outside on industry. Yeah. Hindsight's 2020, right? But you got to start. And that's part of what we're telling a lot of these innovators. Yeah. Make one step. And I think that you're going to judge that step after the fact, but it was made. Yeah. And I think that momentum is absolutely still carrying on, right? Those steps are continuing. And like those touch points that you've made, those are relationships you're still fostering.
Yeah. And for a guy that had never worked with industry, my whole life has been in the operational world. Like you worked with it, you moved over to the acquisition, so you understood the business of the Army.
Right.
We deploy, we just know we're getting kit, RFI, whatever, we're just getting it. REF is going to deliver, it's going to be all great. How it gets there is really fascinating to somebody that didn't grow up doing that. That's why, people were like, okay, how many military assistants do you have in the Secretary's office? Well, this one's a military assistant. This was a military acquisition SME assistant because, we get ourselves into trouble not understanding, the FAR, or understanding what we can or can't do. So I learned a lot. Those last, I want to say 3 or 4 years in the Army were basically I felt like a lieutenant again, just as much as you can absorb.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. And then you see all these startups, and that's where my passion is now, right? So when I retired, I had moved 24 times. So that was a lot of moves, a lot of disruption for the family, 9 different schools, three sons were just, figuring it out. And then, got offered a job to stand up the George H.W. Bush Combat Development Complex, right? So it was this vision between the state, Texas A&M University system, and then Army Futures Command 1.0 to have this complex that's focused on, technology areas like hypersonics, directed energy, laser diagnostics, autonomy, all the things that were priorities. They're still priorities. There were priorities at that time. Maybe, are they number 1 or they number 5 now or 6? Think time kind of changes your priorities based on
one
the
of the
needs.
things that and you were in it. So one of my observation points was, and you just mentioned these touch points that you and General Murray had gone around, is how much that the state leaned in.
Oh yeah,
on that, and so that role you easily went into because of the work you had done prior to, right? That university didn't wait.
No, and that's a great point. Not only did the university put in the largest actually investment into the Bush Combat Development Complex, its research, its people, and then its exquisite facilities, right? So the initial seed money for this George H.W. Bush Combat Development Complex was $80 million from the university, from the Board of Regents, $50 million from the state of Texas, and then $65 million in terms of research dollars through a cooperative agreement through Army Futures Command. Eventually, it turned into an IDIQ, $100 million IDIQ.
But the commitment came first, based upon the vocalization of the mission and the direction of it. That's powerful. I just want our audience to know that.
Yeah, no.
I mean, that resonates with the culture of Texas.
That's why
in that way.
We advocate for startups. We advocate for companies to move to Texas because the culture of national security is not unmatched anywhere. Regardless of what we think about politics, and we've been apolitical for so long because of wearing the uniform. It's easy to continue to be apolitical, but there's one thing that resonates that has been the foundation is Texas, has a surplus, and they spend their money on things that are important, not only to Texas and Texans, but to the security of the United States and its citizens. Like, I really believe that this is a place where we can grow great, fantastic national security startups, companies, and help, with these big primes, help them scale to where, they're enabling, big platforms.
I look at Texas as the best proving grounds for national security and defense, right?
100%.
Because the state alone understands a lot of the things that the United States understands and their needs, right? And then the gaps itself. So let's go back to the university, right? So you were in Futures, now T2Com. You came out and you went to work at A&M.
Right.
They stood up this new organization. I want you to spell out what the organization is for everyone, but the mission of that organization.
If I could sum up the George H.W. Bush Combat Development Complex, right? So we asked the family, the Bush family, if our value proposition matched the legacy of their father, which you got to remember, now he was not only the CIA director, he was a diplomat.
An Air Force fighter pilot too?
Navy.
Excuse me.
Navy fighter pilot. Then he was vice president. Then he was a president. Like, everything about him was about public service. So I got to brief 43.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He doesn't come often, because he has his own library and his own, not to mix with his dad's legacy too much to confuse things, which I really respect. And he said, Colonel, he goes in one line, and we had him for an hour. He said, tell me what your mission is. I just had 4 different pop-up charts to brief him on, have a dialogue, with 80 of our best friends. His entourage was like 80 plus security and all this other stuff. We had the chancellor, president of the university, et cetera. And I said, Mr. President, it's to accelerate modernization for United States government, specifically DOD. And he goes, well, I don't know why I'm here for an hour. He goes, the colonel just gave me like the mission statement in 2 minutes. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I look over the chancellor and he's just like looking at me. I'm like, what was I going to answer his question? And he said, oh, I'm just kidding. He's got a great sense of humor. And he said, remember, I'm a history major. So basically, don't dazzle me with all the technology. So I'm like, good, because I'm not the guy to dazzle you with all the
flux capacitors,
that's right? The ones and O's, right?
Exactly.
No formula is going to come out of my mouth.
Beeps and squeaks.
So we spoke about it. I mean, he loved what we were doing, and the idea was, how do we get these things out of the labs into the hands of soldiers as quickly as we can? Like, we don't build anything that, we scale ourselves. Mm-hmm. We have a transition partner. You're very familiar with that, being in acquisition, right? That we transition these technologies over to the government or industry, depending on who our customer is. And then they do with it what they need to do with it. And delivering is not always just a prototype, right? It's just not a thing or a vehicle, or it could be a code.
Right. Absolutely.
That's what a lot of people don't realize. Like, it sometimes can be a code that they needed in order to do something, let's say for hypersonics, right?
I love that you said that, because as I look at technology, I like breaking down fractions in the way that if I'm talking to a dating app, oh, no, you're dual use. There's no place for this. And they go, wait a minute. Walk me through that dating app. Let's get down to maybe the codes, or, what algorithm, all the beeps and squeaks like you're talking about. Maybe let's just pull that out.
Yeah.
And that has an application maybe somewhere else.
That's right. So early on, when I used to do a lot of judging, and I still do some judging for pitches and startups, there were, let's say we were talking about effects, fire effects, like field artillery. I would tell companies like, hey, listen, you have to, one, visualize where the target is in a degraded environment. You have to report back if you hit, so battle damage, to understand, do you need to move left or right, how many mils, et cetera. And you got to visualize that. You got to communicate it back in order to change mission, fire mission. Like, there's a lot of different technologies that I just said there. Because sometimes they think it's the ammunition, it's the tube, it's the, like, no.
Those are big words,
That's
big
right.
statements, right?
That's right.
I know they are.
Like, there's so many enabling technologies to understand. Is it satellite? Is it line of sight? Is it like, and they were like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah,
like,
we just had the pit director here.
That's right.
And
that was good. That was a fantastic session, by the way.
We asked him, what are those industry standards that these guys need to abide by?
Yeah.
Like unpacking that to a certain degree to gain speed and momentum.
But it's really a lot of the startups now that want to work in government, what they don't have is a good military Sherpa to help them understand how helpful their technology could be on the battlefield.
I love that you said that, because I think you're the perfect Sherpa to lead the effort down there at A&M. Talk about, and why do I say that? Because you were very fortunate to be at the tactical level, the operational level, and then with your role in the Pentagon multiple times, you understood the strategic. And even beyond the walls of the Pentagon, it's the influence of the government, right? The congressmen, the budget cycles, the entirety of it. And so you bring that down now to Texas A&M. Can you talk about what the role is now of that facility to help engage industry or even?
So my roles have changed. I mean, I've cut my hours back a bit to, slow down, but it seemed like,
I don't think
slow down, it was downhill kind of thing. So cut back to 50. So now I'm working as the strategic partnership director. And it's exactly what you said, right? It's bringing these companies, bringing the government, bringing accelerators in to show them what we can do to help their companies or help their organization move the readiness needle, right? Collect the data. So our ballistics, aero optics, and materials test range, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the most instrumented and largest facility of its kind in the United States, right? So you have a bunch in the G range, which is owned by the government. Those are, were built in the 50s and 60s. Ours is 500 meters. We can shoot, our hypersonics projectiles close to Mach 15. And we can collect data throughout the shot, right? We can change the atmospherics. We can put weather dynamics, dust particles to see what it does to a projectile going that fast. So think about driving a fast car and a bug hitting the car. What happens to that? Now, imagine if a projectile was going Mach 15. Even dust particles will have an effect on navigation or the shape of the projectile. So you collect all that data, and then there's a soft catch at the end. Then you could do postmortem on that as well to see, okay, what happened to that projectile going that fast? The plan is to go to 1 kilometer, so it'll even be larger, and we'll be able to collect more data through that tunnel. And then, counterpropagation wise, we have a laser diagnostic. We have a laser tube, a directed energy tube inside the 8-foot diameter tube that we already have. So one, you have rails, hypersonics rails shooting, and then the other way you have directed energy. And we can introduce the same kind of atmospherics, et cetera, because as you know, when we're doing counter-UAS or we're doing laser work or offensive work with hypersonics, we're not shooting in a lab.
Right.
We're shooting in an environment that's
it's a
realistic.
combat development center.
That's right.
It's in the name itself, right? As
then
close as you can.
Innovation proving ground, the Army at that time needed, how do we test autonomous vehicles? How do we test air, ground, air? So we have maneuver challenge course, we have operational test area, and then things changed over time. And now a lot of the need is counter UAS.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of the great leaders built out a 12-mile corridor beyond visual line of sight. So that's exactly what we needed. But it's the strength of the system that's helpful, right?
I love that you said that, right? It's you because it is a system.
Yeah.
System of systems, really. If you look back, how could industry really get those type of observations? I mean, you had to either be a big prime, you had to be, contracted, even to go behind the walls of those operational test environments. Yeah. And now you're seeing, just like Army Futures Command is not based, or excuse me, T2Com now is not behind a fence.
Yeah.
It is out here in downtown Austin.
That's right.
And you're seeing that entire activity, the system itself, go outside.
Yeah.
Right. And the BCDC is one of those systems outside that I think and there's more types of environments as well. Private ranches, I think, is something that we just saw a signal from the Army Applications Laboratory. So these things getting it outside, but your talent is also former green suiters. Right. Or those engineers that can give you the assessments. That's how that would be in the warfighter's
We have the test. We have, a lot of the folks that are in the IPG that work on test came from OTC or that's Operation Test Command, or they came from ATEC,
right?
Army Test and Evaluation Command. The beauty of what we do is we can open up the aperture to 12 universities in our system and 8 state agencies. Like, we see ourselves in a lot of ways the front door into, and this is, General Brown's words. He is like, we see BCDC as the front door to the A&M system.
It's huge.
Yeah. It's just like having a front door in the Pentagon. 1,000 doors in the Pentagon. Which one do we walk through?
Right. And that door is actually connected to somewhere in APG or somewhere in Hawaii that way, right?
So we, the system has facilities. We're in every county in Texas. The system is. So we know where we have a bigger, let's say, UAS facility than ours.
Right.
And that's in Corpus Christi, right? So, and then the difference there is you could also have flyover water, littoral, we can make that connection. Like if that's part of what you need, we'll call them up and we'll coordinate it so that that startup or that prime or government, they don't have to go searching around for a needle in a haystack. Right. We can help them do that because
do the coordination. Because if you were going to replicate 100%. That, you'd have to go coordinate with White Sands Missile Range, and then probably.
And don't get me wrong, we're in between. Like our facilities are not big government facilities.
Absolutely,
right?
It's to demonstrate.
That's right,
and with data.
That's right. So the government has a lot of good things working for it, and a lot of things that restrain like startups. Mm-hmm. Time, because it takes a long time to get range time, and money. And heaven forbid if your product doesn't work during the test window that you have, then you got to wait and go back to the end of the line, right? Because a lot of people don't realize, like government test facilities they're joint. So it's just
that's a great
Army
point.
Test and Evaluation Command. They don't just test Army stuff.
Right.
The Navy tests stuff there, absolutely. The Marine Corps, Air Force. And then you have us, and we have all the telemetry. We can collect all the data that is needed. And then you have, I would say, others that, there are risks there too, right? Who has liability? Can they collect data?
These are things, one, the questions that you are asked, as preliminary as they are and as important as they are, these innovators need to recognize that is part of the journey.
Right.
These questions, you may be hearing them for the first time, but those are the realities. Right. If you didn't hear it at the university or in that complex, you're going to hear it later on, which may have an even bigger impact to what you're needing to do.
Is it regulated?
Right.
Right. Is it one of the things that some of these ranch farmers and people that open up to startups, one of the things we're working with them on is another kind of morphing business model is let us bring our mobile data collection if they need it. If they need it, let's do an MOU. And then if they need it, we'll send the team down there, collect the data that they needed. They're using your facilities. We're helping like the ecosystem, right? Let's not be competitors. Let's be competimates on a lot of the things that we're all kind of focused on. And they could be cheaper, but the government's going to say, we want to see your data.
That's what I mean. We partner with A&M very early on because of the data, right? You need data to support a decision. It's not a big procurement decision, but it is a decision to go through the gates. But in learning and working with your team is this mobility aspect, right? Where there's a limitation. Okay, let's check the system. Let's see what we can do in Corpus Christi. If not, there's just a matter of whatever, let's do it on a private ranch. Maybe that's where they've started their early testing. You guys will go mobile in order to produce the data to then get to an ultimate decision. So it's not just, again, you're behind a wall, come to our facilities or not. It's this level of collaboration.
That's right.
Even A&M is willing to go outside.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because listen, we know there's only certain things we can do kinetic-wise, right? In some branches, they do a lot more kinetic. Mm-hmm. And, if we need to partner for the right reasons, that's what we want to do, right? And then, again, this is all for the betterment of supporting the warfighter or supporting DHS, whoever our customer or our strategic partner is, that's who we're trying to support to find a way to get to yes, right? It's
to move the needle,
that's
right? And whether it be yes or no.
That's right.
No's not a bad answer either, right? No, you're not ready, but these are the assessments that you can get.
That's
come on back. So it's not no, you're done. You come back to the next station.
And listen, I got skin in the game, right? You got kids, nephews, nieces, friends' kids that are in the military. They need the best of the best that we can get them. This is, my small way to give back to, something that still is near and dear to my heart, right? That's, the Army's mission, win our nation's wars. Can't hold ground in the water. You can't hold ground from the air. You need boots on ground to win our nation's wars, right?
Overmatch.
That's right.
You want an unfair
That's right.
fight.
I want an unfair fight every single time. And this is not, a lot of people are like, oh man, it's all about war. Like, no, if you can negotiate from a position of power, then we deter war.
I can tell you right now, war, as much as I wanted to demonstrate my skill sets, I don't think anybody wished that.
Oh, yeah.
That's absolutely still the very last option.
Yeah. And you know this, we use dime, we use all these different things to levers of power, to understand diplomatic information, military, economic. We're seeing that now. Right now is the combat laboratory that's happening, right? It just so happens.
And labs in different countries are being activated
That's
too.
right.
That's right.
That laboratory, my own flesh and blood is part of
lab.
Is part of the lab.
That's right.
It's part of the experiment of, what's going right, what's going wrong, right? So I'm all in on that. I appreciate the ecosystem that supports that, and then all these countries, I always encourage them when I meet folks at South by, or if I go to different events, like you want to move your technology and your manufacturing to this country. I said, move it to Texas. I said, you'll be greeted with open arms. You have workforce development. You'll have people, right? You'll have counties, cities that are pro manufacturing.
Absolutely.
And then you'll have the right culture to build what you're building, right?
It's this entirety of momentum to move the needle, to find that opportunity. Yeah. And I love that. Our focus is the duality of finding not just markets in the federal government, but it's the commercialization too, because, we're always operating at a certain readiness level. That readiness level may not be constant enough for the business to survive.
Right.
And I think you now coming outside into the industry, having seen so many companies, can you talk to or provide maybe a piece of advice, something that I think would be beneficial to that community? Understand, look, we love the patriotism. We have all of these resources available to you, but this is a tough challenge.
Yeah. So technology is important, but you have to be surrounded by the right people, right? You've been in this business a long time. There's you need funding. Sometimes the technology is really, it's second to none, but a lot of VCs focus on the people, right? That drive these companies or startups. One thing that I try to do, and I would recommend to these companies to do, is find the right advisor or board advisor for the technology that you have, right? So I'll give you an example. Somebody was looking, and it was more intelligence related. I knew they were asking me to do, I said, not me, but I know a guy.
Right.
I know two guys.
You know a lot of guys, Ross.
Go talk to them and find out where you have a connection with your technology. Logistics, right? And we know a guy. We know three guys. Pick the best one that fits your value proposition and the culture of your organization, because I'm not going to be very helpful in logistics.
Well, I think we respect that of each other, right? We know what our SWOT is, right? Strengths, weaknesses. But again, the opportunity is, let me find you the person that I know will be very successful.
So find a good advisor that can help you understand the environment and help you shape strategy to get after your value proposition, right? And that's everything. So every time I talk to startups, they're looking for more connections within industry or people that relates to their technology. At the same time, they're looking for monetization, right? So they're looking to monetize or maybe go through a pre-seed or a seed or a Series A round. So having a good network to help companies that you know should succeed is really important, right? So I think the people aspect, don't take no for an answer. Have a really good mentor and tormentor.
I've never heard that. That's actually
So I have a lot of mentors. I have a lot of tormentors, and you learn a lot from them, right? So
you want to learn fast,
yeah,
as fast as possible,
and like find a way. Don't just throw your hands up in the air because you can't get there. Find a way to get to where you need to get to, and then your organization will flourish. Right.
What do you love about Texas?
I love the fact that it is very national security oriented. I think the people are welcoming, and the business environment is second to none. Like, listen, I told you where I came from. Came from California, Califas. We're $32 billion in the hole. And then they're $34 billion surplus here, right? That should tell you what environments you need to be in order for your company to flourish. I mean, for me, that's kind of the bottom line.
Where do you see the defense ecosystem that I think we incubated, if you will, right? We were part of the incubation team. Where do you see this ecosystem as it is today, 10 years from now?
I think
in Austin, and maybe we can even grow up beyond Texas.
Listen, I'm going to tell you the few things that why Secretary McCarthy made the decision for Texas, specifically Austin, right? It was the research triangle, right? So you had, San Antonio and Austin, you had College Station in Houston, you had DFW. That was really important. The culture of startups and the attitude towards national security startups was high. Access to capital was high because we saw a lot of money moving from the two coasts inwards. So that was part of his rubric to say, this is a place where we can smash into the future, and you don't have to be in a car, right? Downtown Austin is still very walkable. From here to the headquarters, you can run into 3 or 4 companies or 3 or 4 mates from T2Com, and still.
It's funny when you say run into Colonel McVeigh of AAL walking into the office at 6 a.m. I almost hit him as he was doing PT. I mean, you're right. Just the proximity of what's going on.
And I think it will flourish. I think it's still growing, and I think it's even going to grow even further. Now, what I think our jobs, as maybe some of the foundational guys, is how do we make that triangle bigger and more inclusive to places like El Paso, the Panhandle, Rio Grande Valley, because they're moving out on their own right now. Rio Grande Valley, Brownsville and that area, I mean, they're putting in a big shipbuilding. They had 3 or 4 billion there. There's a
Boca
lot
Chica,
of
Space Camp is
Boca
big,
Chica is down there, right? SpaceX. So these are the things that I think we need to do is open our aperture up and say, okay, what's beyond just our not visual line of sight, but our driving line of sight.
Sure.
El Paso's big. They're they're working on additive. They're working on manufacturing. They're working on all of this under the tutelage of the former Secretary of the Air Force that's there.
UTEP, go Miners.
That's right. So they got their picks. They're getting after it. They got a skiff that's getting put up. So how do we be more inclusive in these AUSA events or the events here or Cal wherever, how do we be more inclusive to not be so research triangle focused?
You know, one of the biggest things that one, having met with Secretary McCarthy day one, one of the things that I wish I would have said to him is the importance of having 3 colors of money here more consistently at the onset of that. And I know that may have been very much part of the roadmap, but you look at Huntsville, Alabama, you look at these centers of gravity that are there. Texas has really done that without.
Yeah.
And you're seeing now the need calling from the Army is, hey, let's look at private capital. Let's engage with private capital earlier at the onset and have them watch that. Okay. I think, that speaks again to all of the qualities that you're seeing here in this state is, number one, we will come and have those conversations.
Yeah. I mean, private capital for data centers. Mm-hmm. I mean, who'd have thought that we were going to go after private capital for government data centers?
Right.
So I like where things are changing, landscape's changing. And I think all of Texas has something to offer, right? If you go to Odessa and Midlands, there's a couple hypersonics companies that are there manufacturing.
Big time. And they're doing not just, let's just say the below on the ground infrastructure build, they are doing the coordination from the corridors of space, right? They're establishing these pathways where the FAA knows about it and NASA knows about it. And obviously the Army is going to know about that. In Midland and Odessa, there is actually a corridor.
Yeah. So there's a company that I went to with the DCG here at when it was Army Futures Command, went to go visit a company that in El Segundo. That's where their R&D headquarters was, but their manufacturing was in Odessa, Midland. And, I asked them that's a very interesting, how did you find that? And they're like, well, they have a great community college, technical, and they do a lot of things with their hands, like oil and gas. So this is just another branch to where we can get people workforce development wise to go into.
Is that what you're talking about? University of Texas Permian Basin. Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So, we're in El Segundo talking about Odessa Midland.
Love that.
Which I was just like, wow, and he said, it's just, we can't, our researchers won't move there because they're so dug into the, into the LA scene.
That's a reality.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a reality.
So I just said, man, I love it. There's a good connection there. You do the R&D here. They do all the test manufacturing in Odessa, Midland. Let's go.
Collaboration.
There's collaboration. And they still know to come to Texas. So it was eye-opening for me that was okay, we're in El Segundo. We're talking about Odessa, Midland. But it makes sense to me too at the same time.
Ross, it's an honor for me because, we met in the building.
Yeah.
And I see you every single day still being a champion. I mean,
thank you.
I don't see you out of uniform, right? I think you just changed the uniform.
That's right. Different camouflage.
That's right. We're blending.
That's right.
Into a different. What would you tell those young what would you tell your sons or not to get too personal, but, those young lieutenants, those young leaders, those young NCOs, about where they think the defense ecosystem should go?
Ooh. So I do talk to my sons about this, right? Because they knew from my time in, Army Futures Command, some, the nods we were testing, some of the visual stuff we were testing, even when they're, in the Corps Cadets at Texas A&M, they would ask me questions, really inquisitive, where are we moving towards? The level of technology that's moving in to some of these cohorts that we talked about, the ticks, is something that you and I didn't grow up with, right? We were still getting old stuff, and we just keep getting the Connexes, and nobody ever opened them.
Drive-by fielding.
That's right.
To a certain degree.
So now I told him, I said, be open to the equipment that you're going to get. Understand how to fight those pieces of equipment. Because I said, doctrine is the last thing to catch up, right? Concepts are sometimes the last thing to catch up. So will your 12-soldier squad be 10 now because you have a robot in it? And I said, you really have to be a student of what you're doing. But I said, at the end of the day, this is all about people, right? Take care of your people, and they'll take care of you. But I said, it'll be a good learning journey for them. And, they're better with they're more intuitive with robots and technology and all these different things than I ever will be.
Integration, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I said, you will find different ways how to fight your formation than somebody that envisioned it, even with a Sherpa, because they haven't been on the ground maybe for 5 years. You're going to understand that. I said, so learn how to do that, and then be a champion of the things that you really think can change, change warfare in a good way, right? Protect our soul. There are certain things soldiers should never do, ever, if a robot can do it, right? We're not searching for a mind like we used to with like the blind lead the blind. Don't get me wrong, that was the technology back then, but that put a lot of risk on us.
I forget the engineering truck that would just fire across, right?
Oh, yeah. With the Bangler to it.
Right.
It's like there's different technologies now that we should never do that. We should never have to open up a hatch to put a drone out because it exposes. So like a drone should be able to go up on its own and do a zone reconnaissance or area reconnaissance. So you don't have to have soldiers pop their head up to do those types of things, right?
You mentioned these ticks. I think, number one, that is an opportunity to inform the technologies of the future that traditionally, at least when I was growing up, likely probably when you were growing up, when would you ever get an industry partner to come and talk to you, during sergeant's time training that says, hey, take a look at these widgets. How could we make this better for you?
100% ever saw that.
What?
We just did hip pocket training.
Right, that's right.
Of stuff we already knew, right? To fill up some time and to sharpen, what we had.
Right, the middle tasks.
That's right. That's right. So, but what I tell them is also be.
Maybe that should be an addition to the middle task. Is find something in the industry or commercial market that we need to be bringing in.
Yeah. And what I tell them is like, listen, just don't say something doesn't work.
Right.
I said, say what works, what doesn't, and how it could be better.
Absolutely. Feedback.
That's right.
It's
like real feedback. Don't just give it, I'm just going to write something small, because then when you don't get the good kit, you're going to wonder why. You'll be part of the problem.
Right.
Right. So,
That's fabulous advice. I think, look how fast technology is pushing the edge. My youngest is 13. She's learning AI at the same time I am.
It's amazing.
And the biggest thing for me was, guess who also is learning it? Those Fortune 500 companies. So, man, you talk about leveling the playing field.
It's intuitive for them.
Exactly. And guess who? Exactly. That's the other aspect, right? It's naturally intuitive because they kind of early on were touching technology. Ross, I'm extremely proud to have you here in the chair. That we can still call you a friend, and we're still kicking butt here.
Yeah.
Last thing that I ask a lot of folks is, if you had to choose your own call sign that would really sum up kind of where you're at today, what would that be?
I wouldn't say disruptor. I like coeus.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up.
You have to look it up.
Don't ask me to spell it. I'd have to take off my boots.
Coeus.
Okay, explain.
So it is a Greek father of insight, father of like looking forward. That's what we all aspire to be, is to find out what's over the horizon. Because if you're looking at your current site picture, you're in the current ops.
That's exactly right.
Right. So how do we get ahead and look at what's over the horizon? Right. That's what I aspire to be like. I'm not really good at it, but I'm
really good at it. I'm
trying to get there.
I would just say that describes what you are today. Is you are one looking at the horizon.
So COEUS 6.
COEUS 6.
Yeah.
I dig that.
Yeah. So that's something I think we should all aspire to be is what's the next, everybody's looking at AI right now.
Mm-hmm. What's next?
What's next? And then for the testing world, do we need quantum to test quantum? Or is our apparatus ready for some of these new technologies? There's R&D, and then there's T and E. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do we test and evaluate quantum with another quantum?
I love that you said that, right? That was one of the questions that I had with a startup, an international startup that was rolling things out, an AI. And I said, okay, this is great. One, I'm going to have to build some level of intuitiveness and confidence in the system. And that's going to happen over time.
Yeah.
But how can you test the AI?
That's where I'm at.
That's my sidekick.
That's where I'm at. So those are the types of things that we all should be thinking about. Listen, if we had our soldier, first U.S. soldiers, let's say, killed with a drone in 2000, or service members killed in 2002, 2003 with a drone, and then I think we really owned that space for 10 years. But in those 10 years, we should have been working on counter UAS.
Right.
Like we killed our first adversary, let's say in 2002, 2003, 2011, when we got hit with a drone, like we should have already been prepared. Because we had 10 years to work on counter UAS, because if you don't think the enemy's going to use those same tactics on you, like shame on us, right? So what's next for all of us, right? Is it I like to focus on areas you can't see: underwater, space, cyber. Space economy is going to be huge.
I think that's part of looking over the horizon is knowing what is available. Right? Because I think that's the availability.
Right.
You're seeing these commercial products. I remember being in the building with General Allen, and we were talking about the next future vertical lift.
Yeah.
And one of the statements that resonated with me is when he said, "Look, guys, we don't want to be on the wrong end of the cost curve, especially as these smaller systems are deploying. You can take a $30 drone to disrupt a $30 million aircraft."
So when did he say that? Oh, when Dan Allen was the vice, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Dan Allen was the vice. Mm-hmm. Like that's looking over the horizon.
Exactly.
Because the economics doesn't work out. You're not killing a $30 problem, a $50 or $100 problem with a $1 million solution. It doesn't work out economically for us in the long run. So that's, another great example. He had the foresight. Mm-hmm. He was my boss back in First Cav on one of my deployments. I'll just tell you, those are the types of things that I want to get ahead of, right? And we should all figure out how to get ahead.
Absolutely. It's not just a singular person's responsibility. It's like, who's your safety officer?
That's right.
Everybody raise their hand. It's a role that we all have to take on. Thank you, my friend.